Lysera walked along the polished marble halls of the royal palace, her footsteps echoing softly in the high ceilings. The air smelled faintly of alien flowers, and the light from the hovering lamps cast a soft glow over the golden walls. She was the princess of Zorath, a world of floating cities, advanced technology, and creatures that humans could only imagine in dreams. She had grown up surrounded by wealth, tradition, and the constant expectation to maintain the dignity of her people. Yet today, her thoughts were not on her royal duties. They were on Jaren, her new husband, the human who had arrived only a few months ago and already managed to surprise everyone. Jaren was waiting in the private garden of the palace, where strange bioluminescent plants glowed softly in the twilight. The garden floated on a platform above the city, supported by anti-gravity engines, and the sky beyond showed the twin suns setting in brilliant shades of purple and orange. He was leaning casually against the railing, his eyes watching the city below, but when he saw Lysera approaching, his face lit up with a warm, human smile. "Lysera," he said, stepping forward as she reached the edge of the platform. "You've been walking too fast. Slow down, enjoy the view." "They are still uncertain about you, Jaren. I must prepare them." He looked ordinary by human standards, tall, strong, and healthy, but there was something in his posture, in the calm way he carried himself, that made her trust him completely. He did not try to impress anyone, yet his presence filled the space with a quiet power. Even the palace guards, who were used to standing near creatures twice the size of humans, seemed to notice him differently. "Do you really think they will accept you?" she asked softly. Jaren shrugged. "They have no choice but to try, and if not, well, I will show them in my own way." He had handled dangerous alien creatures with ease, and he had repaired machines that had puzzled the palace engineers for decades. But what surprised her most was that he never bragged. He did not need to. His abilities spoke for themselves. The garden doors opened behind them, and a messenger arrived, bowing deeply. "Princess Lysera, the council awaits. Your husband is invited to attend, as you requested." But Lysera knew Jaren could bring a perspective that none of the council members had considered. "Very well," she said. "Let us go." When they entered the chamber, the council members rose, their expressions a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and doubt. "Princess Lysera," said the head of the council, a tall Zorathian with violet skin and eyes that shimmered like molten silver. "You have requested that this human attend our meeting. He is my husband, and I believe he has insights that could be valuable to Zorath." "I am honored to be here," he said, his voice steady. "I do not claim to understand all of your customs, but I am willing to learn and contribute however I can." "You are not trained in Zorathian politics or strategy." Lysera felt a small surge of pride. Her husband had spoken well, calmly, without arrogance, and yet he had challenged their assumptions in a single sentence. The meeting began, and for the next few hours, the council discussed trade agreements, security measures, and diplomatic relations with neighboring worlds. Jaren observed quietly, asking questions when needed, suggesting ideas that were simple yet effective. He recommended changes to resource allocation that could strengthen defenses, using methods that had worked on Earth but adapted cleverly to Zorathian technology. By the end of the meeting, several council members were whispering among themselves, their doubts giving way to curiosity. One of them, the wiry skeptic, finally nodded slightly. "Perhaps this human is more capable than we imagined. I merely did what humans do best, adapt and try to solve problems." For all the uncertainty that lay ahead, political challenges, cultural differences, and potential threats from beyond their world, she knew that with Jaren by her side, they could face anything. Later that evening, they were walking along one of the palace corridors when a small emergency alert sounded. The palace security systems had detected unusual activity at one of the city's lower platforms. Normally, humans were not allowed to respond directly to security threats, yet Jaren did not hesitate. "Stay here," he said to Lysera, moving quickly toward the source of the alert. Lysera hesitated, but she watched him go. Minutes later, she heard shouts and the sound of heavy objects being moved. When she arrived at the platform, she saw Jaren handling a group of alien creatures that had broken loose from a containment unit. They were large, strong, and unpredictable, but he managed to subdue them without harming any of them, using his strength, agility, and quick thinking. The palace guards stood around, stunned. Even the strongest Zorathians would have struggled to control these creatures, yet Jaren made it look effortless. Lysera's heart swelled with admiration. This was more than physical strength. It was courage, intelligence, and instinct all combined. He had not waited for orders. He had acted when action was needed. "Are you all right?" she asked, rushing to his side. Jaren nodded, brushing dust from his sleeves. "They were frightened. I only guided them back where they belonged." "That is a promise." And in Jaren, she had found not just a husband, but a partner who embodied the best of humanity: strength, courage, adaptability, and an unshakable calm in the face of danger. The twin moons of Zorath rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the floating city. Lysera leaned against Jaren, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. Somewhere beyond the stars, other civilizations might doubt the humans, might see them as weak or insignificant. But here, in the heart of Zorath, she knew the truth. Humans were a force to be reckoned with, and Jaren was living proof of it. The city slept beneath them, but Lysera's mind was wide awake with possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new council meetings, and perhaps new threats. Yet she felt no fear. With Jaren, humans and aliens could work together in ways no one had imagined. The galaxy was larger than either of them could know, and the adventures ahead promised to test the limits of strength, courage, and ingenuity. For the first time in her life, Lysera realized that marriage was not just a union of two people. It could be a bridge between worlds, a new path to understanding, and a force capable of reshaping the future. And with Jaren by her side, she was ready to face that future, no matter what it held. The morning sun of Zorath rose slowly over the floating city, painting the sky in streaks of gold and violet. Lysera stood at the edge of her balcony, watching the platforms below awaken with activity. Traders arranged their wares, airships lifted cautiously from docking bays, and citizens moved with the practiced rhythm of life in the capital. Yet beneath the usual calm, tension simmered. Word had reached the palace that a neighboring faction, the Caliph, had been massing forces near the border. They were not at war yet, but their presence was a warning, a subtle threat to test Zorath's readiness. Lysera turned to Jaren, who was inspecting a small, hovering drone in their garden. The device hummed quietly, scanning for anomalies in the city. His hands moved confidently, adjusting sensors and recalibrating its movements with ease. Despite the palace's advanced technology, he approached the device like a puzzle to solve, not merely a machine to operate. "They are gathering at the border," Lysera said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of concern. "The council wants to know if we are prepared. If the Caliph strike first, many lives could be at risk." "Then we should go to the council," she said. "They will want your perspective. Explain why we should consider his opinions seriously." But humans are quick to adapt. We observe, we learn, and we use what we know to respond. I can provide ideas you may not have considered. They may attempt a direct assault, but they could also use diversion or stealth. Their strength lies not only in force, but in surprise. I suggest we prepare for multiple scenarios, not just one standard response. Our forces must be flexible. Others nodded, beginning to recognize the value in considering options they had not anticipated. Lysera felt a small surge of pride. Her husband's words carried weight, and even the skeptics could not ignore his logic. After hours of debate, the council decided to implement a series of new measures suggested by Jaren. They reorganized patrol routes, improved communication between platforms, and prepared mobile defense units capable of responding quickly to any incursion. Jaren's influence was subtle but effective. The city was better prepared because of him, though few would admit it openly. Later, as they left the chamber, Lysera turned to him. "You were very persuasive," she said. Jaren smiled faintly. "I only spoke truth. Humans often rely on common sense, which seems uncommon here." Any threat there could destabilize the city's balance. Jaren's expression shifted instantly from calm observation to focused determination. "Lead the way," he said. "We will assess the situation and act accordingly." Zorathian guards were engaged, but the intruders were fast and clever, using unfamiliar maneuvers that the local forces struggled to counter. Without hesitation, Jaren moved among the guards, analyzing their positions and the behavior of the intruders. He identified weaknesses in both the city's defenses and the enemy's approach. With clear, concise instructions, he directed guards to cover blind spots, reroute civilians to safety, and isolate the scouts. His suggestions were simple, practical, and effective. Then came the physical test. One of the scouts tried to climb the edge of the platform to escape. Jaren reacted instinctively. He grabbed the alien by the arm and lifted him effortlessly, holding him suspended in the air until the guards could secure him. A heavy crate had been knocked loose, threatening to fall onto the platform below. Without hesitation, Jaren intercepted it, pushing it aside with raw strength, preventing injury to the guards and civilians. The Zorathian guards watched, stunned. They had trained their entire lives to handle security threats, yet this human moved through the chaos with a combination of courage, intelligence, and physical power that none of them had expected. Even the Caliph scouts hesitated, unsure how to respond to someone so capable. Lysera observed from a safe distance, her heart swelling with pride and admiration. Jaren was not only strong but also calm under pressure. His decisions were quick and precise, guided by instinct and experience. She realized that humans possessed a kind of resilience that could not be taught, it had to be lived. The conflict escalated as more scouts arrived. They were armed with energy-based weapons designed to disable machinery and injure intruders. Jaren did not hesitate. He moved among the attackers with a combination of agility and strength, deflecting attacks, guiding civilians to safety, and coordinating the defense. Each time a scout tried to advance, he intercepted them with precise timing, his actions almost seeming superhuman to the Zorathian observers. By the time the last of the intruders was captured or driven away, the platform had sustained minor damage, but no lives were lost. The Zorathian guards, exhausted and amazed, looked to Jaren with newfound respect. Even the head of the security forces approached him, shaking his hand. "You have done more than any human could be expected to do," he said. "Your presence here has saved this platform. I knew humans were special, but seeing it, this is different." The council members, previously skeptical of humans, could not deny the effectiveness of his contributions. Discussions that had begun with doubt now ended with respect. Lysera sat beside him during the meeting, feeling a sense of reassurance. Jaren's abilities, his intelligence, his calm under pressure, and his strength were reshaping perceptions of humans. They were no longer the simple outsiders they had assumed. They were a species capable of extraordinary feats, combining courage, adaptability, and ingenuity in ways that even the most advanced civilizations could not always anticipate. After the council adjourned, Lysera and Jaren returned to the palace gardens. The twin moons of Zorath were rising, casting silvery light across the platforms and the glowing flora. Lysera leaned against him, watching the peaceful scene below. "You were remarkable today," she said softly. Even the council could not ignore it. It is knowing what to do when it matters most, and acting without hesitation. Your support makes all the difference. And Jaren embodied the best of their kind. As they stood together, looking out over the illuminated city, Lysera realized that the future of Zorath was changing. The presence of a human, once considered a minor curiosity, had become a symbol of hope, strength, and unexpected possibility. The citizens, the council, and even the palace guards would remember this day, not for the attacks, but for the courage and ingenuity of one human who had stepped into a world that was not his own and made a difference that no one could ignore. In that moment, Lysera knew that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, threats would rise, and tests would follow. But with Jaren, humans and Zorathians could face the galaxy together, surprising friend and foe alike. Humanity had arrived on Zorath, and it would not be underestimated again. The morning mist hung low over the floating city of Zorath, drifting across the platforms like silver threads. Lysera walked alongside Jaren as they observed the city's defenses from the palace's highest observation deck. The Caliph threat was growing. Scouts had been seen farther than before, and the council had begun reinforcing patrols across every platform. Lysera could feel the tension in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Jaren adjusted the controls on a small sensor array, his fingers moving quickly but with precision. "The Caliph are organized," he said quietly. "They are testing us. We need to prepare for more than just minor incursions. They may strike where we least expect it." The head of the council spoke with grave authority. "Reports indicate that the Caliph forces are moving closer to the city's perimeter. Intelligence suggests they are preparing a coordinated strike." A few whispered among themselves that a human could not possibly understand the complexities of interstellar warfare. But Lysera stood firm, and Jaren was allowed to present his plan. He laid out a series of defensive strategies, simple yet unconventional. He suggested mobile units that could respond quickly to multiple points of attack, combining Zorathian technology with his own improvisations. He proposed using drones to create false targets and diversionary tactics to confuse the Caliph scouts. The council listened, some nodding, others frowning, but no one could dismiss the logic in his plan. As the meeting ended, the city's alert systems activated. Sensors had detected an incoming fleet of Caliph ships moving at high speed toward Zorath. The city went into immediate defense mode. Bridges between platforms retracted, force fields activated, and warning sirens echoed across the floating structures. Citizens were urged to take shelter while the defense forces prepared for the battle ahead. Jaren moved quickly, coordinating with the palace security team. His calmness in the face of danger inspired those around him. Lysera followed closely, watching him give instructions and adjust defenses with confidence. It was not only his physical presence that impressed her, but his ability to remain composed while others panicked. The first wave of Caliph attackers arrived at the city's perimeter. Their ships swooped down with precision, aiming to disable critical platforms and cut off the city's supply lines. Zorathian defenses fired energy shields and laser turrets, but the attackers were relentless. Jaren observed the patterns of the ships. He noticed that the Caliph were focusing on weaker platforms, hoping to divide the city's defenses. He instructed mobile units to intercept, directing them with a clarity that left the Zorathian commanders astonished. The attack grew more intense. Explosions rocked the city as some platforms were damaged. Debris floated in the air, and the sound of alarms filled every corridor. Citizens and guards alike were scared, but Jaren moved among them with ease, lifting heavy objects that blocked evacuation paths, guiding civilians to safety, and organizing the defenders. Lysera watched in awe as he confronted the Caliph soldiers who had managed to land on a lower platform. Using a combination of strength and quick thinking, Jaren disarmed several attackers, redirecting them into containment fields. He moved like a force of nature, anticipating each move, reacting before the enemies could strike. The Zorathian guards, who were trained for such combat, found themselves amazed at his skill. The battle escalated further when a massive Caliph warship descended, aiming directly for the palace. Its energy cannons were powerful enough to destroy entire platforms. The council members panicked, unsure how to respond. Lysera felt a cold fear grip her, but she found strength in Jaren's calm presence. "Follow my instructions," he said firmly to the palace security forces. "We can redirect the ship's path, but we must act quickly." Using a combination of Zorathian technology and his own calculations, he determined the weak points in the enemy's approach. He directed defensive drones to create interference fields, causing the warship to veer off course. Then, noticing a falling platform debris, he lifted it and positioned it strategically, creating a barrier that further disrupted the ship's attack. The warship crashed harmlessly into the outskirts of the city, its crew stunned by the unexpected resistance. The Caliph soldiers on the ground attempted to regroup, but Jaren was already among them, holding off their advance while directing the Zorathian forces to counterattack. Lysera could hardly believe what she was seeing. Her husband, a human, was moving through a battle against a technologically superior alien force and making a difference at every turn. His strength was not just in his muscles, it was in his mind, his courage, and his ability to inspire others to act with confidence. Hours passed as the battle raged. Jaren continued to coordinate the defense, using every skill he had learned and every instinct he possessed. He lifted massive crates to block pathways, carried injured citizens to safety, and even redirected energy beams from damaged turrets to protect key platforms. Each action demonstrated a combination of physical power and quick thinking that left everyone watching in awe. Finally, the Caliph began to retreat. Their scouts and warships had suffered more losses than they expected, and the defenses of Zorath, reinforced and guided by Jaren, held strong. The city was damaged in places, but the people were safe, and the attackers had been repelled. The council convened immediately after the battle to assess the situation. They were exhausted but impressed. Many whispered to each other, acknowledging that the human had changed the outcome. The head of the council spoke, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and admiration. "Princess Lysera, your husband's actions have saved countless lives today," he said. "I have seen bravery and skill, but nothing compares to what he has demonstrated. Humans may be underestimated, but today we have learned otherwise. Strategy and action must work together. You have shown them not just your strength, but your mind, your courage, and your heart," she said. Jaren shook his head lightly, modestly. I only did what any person would do for others. Humans survive because we help each other. We think, we act, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is all. That evening, as the twin moons of Zorath rose over the platforms, Lysera and Jaren walked together through the palace gardens. The bioluminescent plants cast a gentle glow, and the air was filled with the scent of alien blossoms. For the first time since the attack, Lysera allowed herself to relax. "You were incredible today," she said softly, linking her arm with his. "Even the council could not ignore your actions. I do not think anyone would call you ordinary after today." Platforms floated quietly in the moonlight, and the hum of machinery returned to a calm rhythm. Lysera realized that humans were not only capable of surviving in alien worlds, they could thrive, adapt, and even lead in moments of crisis. In the days that followed, the citizens of Zorath whispered stories of the human who had faced a full-scale attack with courage, strength, and cleverness. Guards and council members spoke of his calm presence, his quick thinking, and the way he moved through the chaos with purpose and power. Lysera knew that Jaren's actions had changed perceptions forever. As they returned to their quarters that night, Lysera took his hand and held it tightly. "You have not just surprised me, Jaren," she said. "You have surprised them all." The twin moons cast their light across the city, and Lysera knew that this was only the beginning. Humans had shown their strength, courage, and adaptability, and the story of one human's legendary actions would spread across platforms, inspiring hope, respect, and awe. In the quiet of the night, Lysera rested against Jaren, knowing that no matter the threat, no matter the challenge, humans were a force to be reckoned with, and her husband was living proof. The city of Zorath was quiet for only a few hours. Repairs were underway on damaged platforms, and citizens were slowly returning to their routines, but the calm was fragile. Reports from scouts indicated that the Calath forces were regrouping, and this time they had brought their champion, a massive alien warlord named Korath, known across neighboring systems for his strength and ruthlessness. He was coming to challenge the city directly, and his target was clear: the palace, the symbol of Zorathian power. Lysera stood at the balcony of the royal quarters, watching the horizon where dark shapes moved against the morning sky. Her heart was heavy with worry, yet she felt a calm certainty beside her. Jaren had remained at her side, observing the movements of the incoming fleet, his eyes sharp and calculating. "They are not just attacking, they are testing us," Jaren said, his voice quiet but firm. "Korath will come personally. He wants to prove himself against our strongest defenders. And humans are not expected to be among them." Even the Zorathian elite warriors feared him, yet she found herself trusting Jaren completely. "He is strong," she said softly. "Stronger than anyone here, perhaps." Every Zorathian commander was present, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. Jaren presented a plan that was bold and unconventional. He proposed using decoy platforms to draw Korath into a controlled space, where mobility and timing could counter his brute force. Drones and energy fields would restrict his movements, and coordinated teams would flank him from multiple angles. Many council members were skeptical. "No human could face Korath directly," one said. "He is a living weapon." She knew Jaren's plan was dangerous, but she also knew that it relied on the same qualities she had seen in him since their marriage: courage, intelligence, and adaptability. The city prepared for battle. Platforms were reinforced, civilians moved to safe areas, and the defense units took their positions. The sky above was filled with the advancing Calath fleet, and at their center floated Korath's massive ship. The ground shook as his landing craft descended onto the palace approach platform, dust and debris swirling in its wake. Jaren led a squad of elite Zorathian defenders to meet him. As they approached, Korath emerged from his craft, towering over them. His armor glinted under the sunlight, and his eyes burned with a mix of fury and curiosity. He had never seen a human fight like this before. "You are the human Lysera speaks of?" Korath's voice was a deep, resonating growl. "I will see if your species is worthy. If that requires stopping you, then I will do so." He waited for the perfect moment to act, staying calm while chaos surrounded him. Then he moved. With speed that seemed impossible for a human, Jaren intercepted Korath's strike, using his own strength to redirect the force and push the alien back slightly. The council and the defenders watched in shock. The human was not only holding his ground but also using strategy to counter a far stronger opponent. Lysera's heart pounded. She had seen him perform feats of strength before, but this was different. This was against a warrior of legend, and yet he was not afraid. His movements were precise, calculated, and powerful. He combined speed, timing, and human intuition in a way that Korath could not anticipate. Korath roared in frustration and struck again, but Jaren anticipated the attack. He grabbed a massive piece of debris and swung it like a lever, knocking the alien off balance. Then he used his agility to close the distance, striking weak points in the armor that Zorathian engineers had noted but never tested in combat. The defenders rallied behind him, inspired by his courage. They moved with new confidence, following his instructions and coordinating attacks that exploited Korath's momentary vulnerabilities. Even the council members were stunned, realizing that a human could lead their forces in a way no Zorathian warrior could. Lysera watched from a safe distance, barely breathing. Her admiration for Jaren grew with every passing moment. He was not just strong, he was a force of leadership, intelligence, and bravery combined. The stories of human resilience she had heard as a child now had a living example before her eyes. The battle escalated further as Korath called reinforcements. Additional Calath soldiers joined the fray, aiming to overwhelm the defenders. Jaren did not falter. He used clever tactics to split the attackers, lifting and moving massive obstacles to create barriers, guiding civilians to safety, and coordinating flanking maneuvers that turned the tide repeatedly. Korath, enraged, engaged Jaren directly again. The clash shook the platform, sending energy sparks and debris flying. Jaren's strength was astounding. He lifted pieces of heavy machinery to deflect attacks, caught falling structures to protect nearby defenders, and struck with precision that left Korath momentarily stunned. The alien's shock was clear. A human could withstand blows that would crush most warriors and strike back with intelligence and force. Lysera could hardly believe her eyes. Her husband was performing a feat that would be called legendary even among humans, combining raw power with tactical genius and fearless determination. He was not just fighting. He was inspiring everyone around him to act with courage and clarity. The battle reached its peak when Korath attempted a final, massive strike aimed directly at the palace core. Jaren acted instantly, calculating the trajectory and identifying the point where he could intervene. Using all his strength, he lifted a massive support beam and redirected the strike, preventing catastrophic damage. Then, using a combination of speed and precision, he disarmed Korath temporarily, creating an opening for the defenders to strike together. The Calath forces, seeing their champion unable to dominate as expected, began to falter. The defenders, now confident and coordinated, pushed back fiercely. Jaren continued to lead from the front, moving fluidly through the battlefield, protecting allies and exploiting every weakness in the enemy's formation. Finally, Korath realized he was beaten. Exhausted, injured, and frustrated, he retreated, calling the remaining forces back. The city had survived, and the defenders had prevailed, largely due to Jaren's unmatched combination of human strength, courage, and strategic thinking. The council convened immediately after the battle, and this time their words were filled with respect. "Princess Lysera, your husband has performed what may be called a legendary feat," said the head of the council. "Humans may be underestimated across the galaxy, but today we have witnessed their power firsthand." "You are extraordinary." They whispered among themselves about the human who had stood against a legendary alien warrior and led their city to victory. Guards and council members alike spoke of his calm presence, his strategic genius, and his fearless actions. Stories of his legendary strength began to spread, not just as rumor but as undeniable truth. That evening, Lysera and Jaren walked through the palace gardens. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly, and the twin moons rose over the floating platforms. Lysera took his hand in hers, feeling the warmth and strength of the human who had become the heart of her world's defense. "You have not only surprised me," she said softly, "but you have surprised them all. Zorath will never see humans the same way again." Then perhaps that is the lesson they needed. Strength is not just measured in size or technology. It is measured in courage, adaptability, and determination. Humans may be small, but we can do great things when we have to. The galaxy will remember this day. Lysera leaned against Jaren, knowing that no matter the challenges ahead, humans and Zorathians together could face them. His legendary strength was not just in his muscles, but in his mind, his courage, and his unwavering heart. For the first time, Lysera felt the certainty that her choice to marry a human had not only been right but transformative. Humanity had arrived on Zorath, and with Jaren, they were ready for whatever the galaxy might bring. The city of Zorath was alive with activity again. Repairs had been completed on the damaged platforms, and citizens moved with a sense of cautious relief. Traders reopened their stalls, children laughed as they floated across the lower platforms, and the hum of airships filled the sky. The attack of the Caliph was over, their champion Korath defeated and their forces scattered. But the story of what had happened spread quickly, reaching every corner of the floating city. Lysera walked with Jaren through the palace gardens, the soft glow of bioluminescent plants reflecting in her eyes. The battle had been won, but its effects went far beyond the physical. Humans had shown a new kind of strength, unexpected, extraordinary, and undeniable. "You have changed everything here," Lysera said softly, watching him adjust a small repair drone that hovered near a glowing plant. "The council, the guards, even the citizens, they all see humans differently now. I only did what anyone would do to protect people, but humans have a way of surprising others when they are underestimated. Perhaps that is what they needed to see." She had known there was something special about him, but now it was clear to everyone. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their courage, adaptability, and ingenuity could match or even surpass the greatest expectations of alien civilizations. Word of Jaren's actions spread quickly. Across the city, people whispered stories of the human who had faced Korath, redirected deadly attacks, and led the defenders with unmatched skill and bravery. Soldiers spoke of how he lifted massive debris to protect civilians, how he coordinated defense strategies with clarity, and how he confronted the legendary warlord without hesitation. The tale inspired awe, not just because of his strength, but because of his mind and heart. The council summoned Lysera and Jaren for a formal audience. The grand chamber was filled with representatives from every district of the floating city. The head of the council rose, his silver eyes reflecting pride and admiration. "Princess Lysera," he began, "and Jaren of Earth, we gather to acknowledge an extraordinary achievement. Today, a human has fought alongside our defenders and faced a challenge that few could imagine surviving. Your courage and wisdom have saved lives, protected the city, and inspired all of Zorath." "He acted not for glory or recognition," she said, her voice steady. "He acted because it was necessary. His bravery and intelligence have proven that humans, though unfamiliar to our world, possess strengths that are extraordinary in their own way." Even the skeptics who had once doubted him now recognized that Jaren had not only survived a legendary confrontation, but had turned the tide of battle through courage, intelligence, and quick thinking. Jaren spoke softly, his tone humble but confident. "I am honored to stand with Zorathians. Humans act when it is necessary to protect others, to solve problems, and to face danger without hesitation. That is how we survive. That is how we thrive. We are ordinary in many ways, but when we are called to action, we can accomplish extraordinary things." The citizens of Zorath, hearing of the human who had stood against Korath, began to see humans not as fragile outsiders, but as beings capable of courage, resilience, and cleverness beyond expectation. Lysera turned to Jaren as the council concluded. "You have not just defended this city," she said softly. "You have changed the way people see your kind. And you have inspired me as well." The city below glowed with restored energy, a mix of technology and life, and the air was filled with the quiet hum of returning normalcy. "We have survived," Lysera said, her hand brushing against his. "But the galaxy is vast. There will be other challenges, other threats, and yet I feel no fear as long as you are here. Humans have a way of surprising others, and together we are stronger than most would expect. Zorath, Earth, or anywhere in the galaxy, we can adapt and overcome. That is our nature." She thought of the Caliph of Korath and of the countless situations where humans were underestimated, and how time and time again they had surpassed expectation. Jaren was not just strong in body, he was strong in mind and spirit, embodying qualities that inspired courage in everyone around him. News of the battle spread beyond Zorath. Nearby civilizations began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Traders, diplomats, and explorers spoke of a species capable of feats previously thought impossible. Lysera knew that humans would never be underestimated again, at least not after witnessing the actions of one extraordinary individual. In the weeks that followed, life on Zorath returned to a peaceful rhythm. Citizens rebuilt damaged platforms, merchants reopened stalls, and children played freely once more. Yet the story of Jaren's legendary actions became part of the city's history, told in schools, recorded in archives, and whispered in admiration. The human who had faced Korath was not only a hero, but a symbol of the unexpected greatness that humanity could achieve. Lysera watched him often, not only as her husband, but as a partner in shaping the future of Zorath. She had once worried that marrying a human might be a challenge, but now she saw that it was a choice that had transformed her world. Humans brought courage, resilience, and ingenuity, qualities that could reshape civilizations and inspire allies across the stars. One evening they walked to the highest platform in the city, looking out over the glowing expanse of floating buildings and the horizon beyond. Lysera rested her head against Jaren's shoulder. "Do you think humans will always surprise others?" she asked softly. Jaren chuckled. "We do not try to surprise, it is simply who we are. We adapt, we act, and we endure. Others may be astonished, but we are just living our nature. That is why we thrive. And you have shown me what it means to be a partner, a guide, and a friend in a world that is not mine. Together, we are stronger than any challenge, and more than capable of facing whatever the galaxy may bring." Lysera and Jaren stood together, hand in hand, knowing that their bond had become more than personal. It had become a symbol of unity, courage, and hope for the people of Zorath. Across the city, citizens spoke of the human who had faced a legendary warlord and saved their home. Soldiers, council members, and children alike shared tales of courage and ingenuity, inspiring new generations to value resilience, intelligence, and bravery. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were partners, allies, and examples of unexpected greatness. Lysera turned to Jaren, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You have done more than survive. You have shown that humanity has something unique, something that cannot be measured by size, technology, or experience alone. It is courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when it matters most. And sometimes, we shine brighter than expected." With Jaren, with humans at their side, Zorath, and perhaps the galaxy would be ready for whatever lay ahead. In the quiet of the night, Lysera rested against Jaren, feeling the strength and reassurance of the human who had become a hero not just in battle, but in heart and mind. They had faced overwhelming odds, defied expectation, and inspired an entire civilization. And the story of the human who fought with legendary strength would be told for generations, a reminder of what humans could accomplish, and a promise that wherever courage, ingenuity, and determination were needed, humanity would rise to the challenge. The twin moons rose higher, casting their silver light over the city. Lysera and Jaren stood together, watching the horizon. Humanity had arrived on Zorath, and it would not be underestimated again. The galaxy had seen only the beginning of what humans could do, and with partners like Jaren, the future was limitless.